the tears started to flow down. I'm like, oh no, don't start, Hilary. Oh, that was gorgeous. And I love the words that came up on the screen. Hello and welcome to the Relaunch podcast. And today's show, I got to tell you, when I first met this guy, he warmed my heart, not just with what he's going to do for us today, but the stories and overall, just, when you meet just a really amazing person and you have that connection, well, today, I'm going to bring this gentleman to you, and his name is Dave Combs. And, here's the thing, before I dive into a lot of wonderfulness of him, he has shown over and over, not just because he has been 40 plus years in the business, has written over 120 songs and created 15 albums of soothing, relaxing, instrumental piano music, including the popular Rachel song, which I think we might even get to hear a little of today. But, he's one of those gentlemen that he's the epitome of classy, just the guy that warms your heart. He knows how to put into what people want to hear to make them feel good. Because he's a songwriter, he's an entrepreneur, he's a successful business executive and a best-selling author. And so today you're going to get such a special treat to meet somebody that has been in the industry for, like I said, over 40 plus years. And now he's going to share what literally brought tears to my eyes, everyone. He's going to share his major relaunch story. And so, Dave, welcome to the podcast show, and welcome. And thank you for being here and being a part of today's episode.
Well, Hilary, wow, what a warm introduction. I wonder who is she talking about here? Oh my, that was a very sweet introduction. Thank you so much. And it's a real pleasure to finally get to have this set up. I know both of us had some scheduling issues and whatever, but now here we are.
And And sometimes, those relaunches, and so many people know that I've been through some pretty heavy duty relaunches over the last few weeks, with the most significant being my dad's passing. And we've been scheduled on every single one of those major days. I have to fly back home. I have to do this. And I'm like, oh my God, is this going to happen? And finally, it's like, I almost am like, I feel that sense of like tingling, that I'm like, yes, this, we're doing this.
Finally, we're here. We're doing, this is real.
This is real. Yes, exactly. So Dave, help the people that are listening understand your journey and your most significant relaunch.
Well, I'll give you the 10,000 feet view first, because I want to put it in context, because I've been around on this planet a pretty long time and I've seen a lot. And so I have a career that started out with a Fortune 500 company in technology. I got my math degree in physics, minor in college, and started my career out as, they called it a computer programmer back then. Today you would call it information technology, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I stayed my whole career within that company. It was Western Electric, which was a subsidiary of the Bell system. We were the manufacturing arm of the Bell system. We had a big factory right where you are today in Denver. We had a great big factory there in Denver. And so that was my day job. And that was my kind of my dream job too, because I studied to be that technical career. But at the same time, music was always a part of my life from the time I was born, because I was born into a musical family. My mother and father both played the piano. My grandmother Combs, she was born in 1894, before electricity was even widely distributed. So she could play the old pump organ with, where you pumped it with your feet and played it. And then she had another instrument, which for those of you watching, this is my Granny Combs's auto harp.
It's called an otter harp?
Auto harp.
Auto harp.
A-U-T-O harp. A-U-T-O
Okay.
harp.
So you
And
can use this, everyone, if you're not following us on YouTube. This thing is so great. Late 1800s.
Yeah, and this instrument is my granny's auto harp that she passed on to me. When she passed on, I have a note here that I found in the box, or my uncle, her son, found it in the box and says, "This harp belongs to David Combs," and signed it Granny Estelle Combs. So that is my inheritance, one of my most cherished inheritance from my granny, because every time I pick this instrument up and every time I strum it, I can hear my granny singing, "Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound." And she could just make that thing talk. She played it a lot more fancy than I just did there.
Hey,
but
you're going to bring tears to my eyes.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I know this is a tender time for you, and I apologize.
God, that was the song that they played on the way when they took him out of the house. But oh my God.
Oh dear. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to trigger those.
No, I'm keeping it together. And when I first heard about your granny, I thought about my grandma who passed away 6 years ago at 105. And I love those. I love these stories. So this is terrific.
Yeah.
And thank you for strumming that right there.
Well, you're welcome, and bless you anyway. My heart goes out to you. But anyway, so music was a big part of my life. And so being around my granny and my mother and father and at church, and being from Tennessee, I'm from East Tennessee. Now that's where, Dolly Parton is from East Tennessee. Ernie Ford was from Bristol, which is about 40 miles from my hometown in Irwin. A lot of music comes out of Tennessee. In fact,
by the way, Dolly is one of my absolute favorites.
She is.
I mean, I still sing the Stumble to Bed and Stumble to the Kitchen.
I dearly love my wife, Linda, but I have to say I also love Dolly. I mean, she is just such a lovable person. In fact, Linda and I both love Dolly Parton. She is a dear, dear person. And I love her singing. I love her personality, her attitude of giving. Oh my goodness, at the millions of books that she's provided to young kids through her foundation. It just goes on and on what Miss Dolly has done through Dollywood and everything that she's given back to the whole world, really. So I'm from East Tennessee, and I think it is a state law in Tennessee that you must play an instrument to be a state citizen. I think everybody in Tennessee is supposed to play something. So I grew up in music, and that was always just part of my everyday life. And as part of my career, your podcast is all about the relaunch. Well, I launched my first career at Western Electric in technology. And along comes a song in 1981, when I'm 33 years old, that I play on the piano. I promise you, I did not sit down to write it. I sat down at my piano and I played this song. It came to me. I just played. I didn't even think about it.
31 years old. But what was going on in your life when you played this song? Because this song ended up being the most incredible hit. And you have such a cute story about when you first heard it and all that, when it became really big. But what was going through, what was happening in your life that you would all of a sudden have this just come through you? I still am amazed by it.
Well, and I don't want to bring tears to your eyes, but
go ahead. I've already got them. You might as well keep going with
this was in January of 1981. On December 22nd, 1980, 3 days before Christmas, my father was killed in a tragic car accident. So I lost my father that just before I wrote Rachel's song. And I really, I express my feelings through my music. I mean, when I want to relax and just take myself somewhere else, I'll sit down at the piano and play something. And I think part of that song is me dealing with the grief from losing my father. If you listen to the song, and people tell me they don't even know my story, anything about it. They'll sit and listen to the song and they'll say, I sit there and cried like a baby. I do not know why.
Well, the first time I heard it, I was just I was moved by it. And I did feel like there was something where I had heard it before. It is, and everybody have no fear. You know me. I'm gonna ask him to give us a little. But before we go into that, you called it Rachel's song.
Rachel's song, because 2 years after I wrote the tune, and we couldn't come up with a name for it, we had our friends of ours had a baby girl named Rachel, and we were asked to be her godparents. And it was at Rachel's christening service that Linda and I were sitting there at this little country church out in the country in New York, and it was on a Saturday, and it was just us and the family and the minister in this little country church. And up at the front of the church on the platform was a baby grand piano. Well, Linda and I are sitting there as just, we're the godparents. We're just to be there and be supportive of the family and of Rachel. Toward the end of the formal part of the service, I looked at Linda and I said, "Hey, what if I played this song now that we've been trying to think of a name for the last 2 years? What if I played it now as part of the end of this service?" And she said, "Wow, I think that's perfect." So I went up and asked Rachel's parents if it'd be okay if I played this song on the piano, or a song on the piano. And they said yes. I walked over to the piano and I sat down and I played this song. And about halfway through it, I hear the clearing of the throat and a few sniffles here and there in the audience. And I noticed that I was having a few little moisture coming out of my eyes at the time. A christening service is tender anyway. I mean, there's nothing sweeter than a little baby boy or girl and their blessings, and it's just the beginnings of a new life and everything. So at the end of the song, I looked over at little Rachel being held by her mother in her arms, and I said, "From now on, this song will be called Rachel's song in her honor." And
okay, I hope everyone out there that's listening just got chills, because my hair on my arms is like standing up. Oh, love
so
that.
it was just the name and the song. It just was like it was meant to be. And it has stuck that way ever since. And now it's been heard and played millions of times all over the world. I don't know how many little babies have been born and named Rachel because they loved that song, their parents loved that song. People have been married to this music. I actually had to create the sheet music for it because people wanted to play it. And it got played in weddings. Mothers would come down the aisle to Rachel's song. And I've even had a couple of...
One of the most popular songs of all time. I mean, this is absolutely gorgeous. Is there a chance that you would be willing to share some of it with everyone listening?
I would be happy to do that. And what I would like to do is play a video that I made many years ago, because I'm a photographer also. I love photography. And I've gotten over 50,000 letters from people over the past 40 years about my music, and mainly about Rachel's song. And I took some of the most really special quotes from some of those notes and letters and put my photography and then my music playing underneath it and made a YouTube video of Rachel's song. And so if you will allow me to share my screen, I will be happy to play a minute or so. We won't play the whole song. It's 3 minutes and 45 seconds long, but we'll play part of it.
Maybe we could play half of it.
Okay.
Of it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
all right.
So I think you can
all right.
share
Let me share the screen here and go to my desktop and...
started to flow down, I'm like, oh no, don't start, Hilary. Oh, that was gorgeous. And I love the words that came up on the screen. And for those that did not see them, there are, wonderful accolades to Dave and the song. And one was at the very beginning that it said something about that the song literally wraps around you. And it does, it gives you like this hug, this comfort. And teachers are, grading papers and, recovering alcoholics, or, it gives them hope. And it just, I mean, I wish you could see the hairs. I mean, it's like, that was wonderful. And wow, that was such a treat to hear that. And so when it started to take off and when it started to be this like massive phenomenon, and what did you think about that? And what type of, at this point you're like, my gosh, I'm now officially, I've been anointed this wonderful global musician.
Well, the feedback that I got from, and it did get played on the radio a lot. Every easy listening radio station back in the late 80s, if you were anywhere in the country that had an easy listening station, you probably heard Rachel's song because it was played all over the whole country. Even in airports or on an airplane. I was on Piedmont Airlines one time and I got on the plane and there's my music playing. So it was everywhere. And the feedback that I started getting was affirming. It was confirming that I was doing the right thing and that this was special and it was a gift. I really felt and I still do feel strongly that it was a gift that I would be remiss if I just kept it to myself and put it under a bushel basket, as you say, with the metaphor. So I felt strongly from all these many notes and letters like you saw on the screen there from people that they didn't know me. They didn't know anything about my background, but they heard my music, and my music touched their hearts and souls. And that became my mission then, to create more music like that and to spread it as far and wide as I possibly could. And that was a long journey. And that was indeed a relaunch of my career. My career was going to be nothing but, a wonderful job of maybe 30, 40 years at AT&T, which Western Electric became AT&T later. So that was going to be my career. But this music overtook that. And it launched me on a much higher trajectory and a higher plane, to the point where in 1992, I had to have lunch with my boss at AT&T and say, Bill, I am sorry, but I cannot work here anymore. I have got to get on with what God put me on this planet to do. And Bill is still a good friend. I mean, he understood, he knew about my music, he loved my music. And in fact, he said, Dave, I wish I could join you. He said, but I've got to stay here and do this. And my quitting my job that day, we were going through a downturn. He said, Dave, you don't know this, but you just saved one of my employees' jobs. He said, I was about to have to let so-and-so go. And he was a young kid with a family. And he said, you just saved his job, because now you're going to be voluntarily going and I can keep this young man on the job. So, things just work out,
Okay, so there are a lot of people in today's world that are thinking that they have a passion, a purpose, and they are scared to make that step because of financial reasons, obligations. And what advice would you give them now that, you've had the experience and you've had the ability to look back on it? What would you say to someone right now who's thinking about making such a drastic move?
Well, sometimes you do have to make not a blind leap, but you have to go on faith. Sometimes you can't. I had the luxury of having. This was in '92. I recorded Rachel's song in '96, so I had 6 years of building my music business up to the point where I was selling tapes and CDs through gift shops all over the country, and that was where my income had really more than doubled what I was making at work. Well, that makes it an easy decision. So I know there are people out there that are in a position, though, where it's not that easy. You're at a position where maybe your side hustle, as some people like to call it, is not quite there yet, and you're struggling with, when will I know that it's time to let go of my crutch, my main job over here, and do what I really want to do with my entrepreneurial side of myself. That's a tough decision, and only the person that's there can make that decision. But my advice is that you work your tail off to get what your entrepreneurship job or your part-time job, get it to as successful a model as you can before you have to decide, I'm going to quit my job and do this full time. That's
great advice. And I want to reiterate what you just said. Your feelings are that you don't, just kind of just throw everything into it and say, I'm, on a whim and a prayer. You're like, okay, let's just do this. You're like, get yourself into that position where potentially you're doing both of them. And when you start to see real success coming with the side hustle, as you said, that's when you can say, all right, I'm now at a point where I can do that.
Mm-hmm. And you have to be real with the numbers. Sometimes people get so enamored with their great idea that they think it's just going to light the world on fire. They kind of lose perspective of what reality is. This is a tough world out there right now with inflation and going like wildfire right now. And, we're heading probably toward a recession, if not worse. And so times can get tough. Yeah. And so you need to not try to fool yourself into thinking things are rosier than they are. Be realistic. Look at the numbers. And in fact, don't just rely on yourself. You need to surround yourself with people who will be honest with you, and also people who will support you and build you up and help you move forward. And the thing is, you don't have to, most of the time, I'm going to say all of the time, you never have to enter into something all by yourself. You bring along with you your family and friends, your support team, and the people who are going to be your arms around you and move you ahead and keep your head on straight. And also people when say, well, Dave, now you shouldn't do that. Okay, all right, I'm listening to you. And you should do this. Okay, well, you're not going to know everything. I don't even profess to know everything. I couldn't go into a studio and record a fantastic album like Gary Prim did, the artist that I used in Nashville. That's his expertise. I write the songs and he arranges and performs them. The team makes it work. So you gather around you whatever you need for your venture, and then you can see and keep the numbers and basically have a business model. Make sure you have a model of something that works. Make sure the numbers are working. Your income has got to be greater than your expenses, or it's not going to work.
Idea, right?
Yeah, it's a really novel idea, but you've got to keep the numbers and, to not make it so impersonal, but the numbers are what we live on. You can't go into a bank and cash a smile. You have to, have something besides a smile to cash at the bank.
That is so great. And you know what? That's so important to say, because sometimes we think, well, if we quit the job, if we quit that, then I'll have more time to really focus on it. But until you see that people want to pay for whatever you are trying to create, until you have proof under your belt that yes, people want what you like and what you're selling and all this, then you can go ahead and say, all right, I think that this might be an opportunity. And I would even go as far to say, at that point, when you're about to really make that massive decision to leave a corporate job or to leave what you were doing in terms of your paid salary, I really would suggest sitting quietly, turn on Rachel's song in the background and just, just listen to it and hear what comes to you, and give yourself that extra nudge to really lean into your own intuition and ask yourself that one question: is right now the right time? Is it?
Yep. Right.
And it's amazing when you do that, and and I love this song so much, when you listen to it and you ask, for guidance. This is what I need to know. And be aware that you're going to get some guidance.
Yeah. You may not, sometimes you may not like what you hear, but you need that advice. And
absolutely. Yeah. Well, this has been so incredible. And I have to say, what a legacy that this song will be forever for you. And I think people right now are struggling with, how to create something impactful and a legacy. What advice would you give them on creating something meaningful?
I would say that people need to spend some time thinking about and recognizing, and maybe in some cases discovering, their own gifts. Every person on this planet has a gift of some kind. It may not be a gift of composing music or painting or writing or public speaking or whatever. It may be the gift of being a great caregiver. You're the kind of person that can take a person that's down in the dumps, and in 10 minutes you can have them smiling and laughing. That's a gift. So everybody needs to discover and water and nourish their own gifts. And sometimes those gifts can turn into a career or a second career or whatever, but oftentimes not. But that doesn't diminish the importance of those gifts, but recognize and enhance and feed your own gifts. And the best thing about a gift is you can give it away. The more you give it away, the stronger it becomes, and the more you receive. So, I think there's a verse in the Bible, it's better to give than it is to receive. I mean, that's true. And so find your gift, enhance it, and give it away, and follow your beliefs and follow your intuition, and be open to listen to the voice that's inside your head and your own motivations, and who knows where you'll go. Some people are going to go into business. Some people are going to go into services. Some people are just going to be wonderful friends and relatives and support people for their family or their church or their community. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. And so that's really my advice. I didn't mean to get on a stump and start preaching at somebody, but that's how I feel about that.
I love that, you look inside yourself and figure out, we all have a gift. And then the best part of what you said is then be willing to give it away. And it's like the boomerang effect, right? The more you give your gift away, the more you will receive. It's so incredible. I call it, when I'm working with clients, I call it the G zone. What is that great zone that you have, that gift zone, that growth zone, that gratitude zone? And sometimes I don't know if I have anything. I don't know if I have that G zone. I'm like, oh, the good news is everyone does. We all do. And we will work on finding it. And a lot of times it's just asking somebody in your circle that, hey, what do you think is my G zone? And then listen to what they say. And all of a sudden you're like, geez, one, it makes you feel darn good. But two, it also leads you down that path of like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I am good at that. So Dave, how can people stay connected with you, hear more about what you are doing, and get their own copy of the Rachel song?
Well, it's really simple. If you remember my last name of Combs, Combs, just go to combsmusic.com. And when you get to my homepage, you're on the left, you'll see a picture of my book. And if you like some of these stories that we've told today, there's a ton of these stories in my book, its title is Touched by the Music. And it's how the story and music of Rachel's song can change your life. And the foreword to my book was written by Jack Canfield, which is another story how I met and became friends with Jack. But he is a wonderful supporter of Rachel's song and my music, and a good friend.
For those that don't know Jack Canfield, which I would be surprised, but in case you don't, I want to make sure, he is Chicken Soup for the Soul.
He is the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. He has sold more books with that series than any other author alive. Over 700 million books have been sold that have been authored or co-authored by Jack. He is an unbelievable person, and I know you would love to talk with Jack. And he is a wonderful, dear, giving. Talk about somebody giving. Jack is the epitome of somebody giving it back. He is helping folks like me and fledgling authors all over the world to reach their dreams through their skills and their gifts.
Wow.
But go to my website, go to combsmusic.com, and on the left you'll see the book, and on the right-hand side of the website you'll see a picture of the cover of my album, Rachel's Song. And underneath the book and underneath the album are links that will take you to Amazon, where you can purchase the CD or the book, or download the MP3 files of the music, or listen to streaming if you're an Amazon music subscriber. You can buy a paperback book, you can buy an ebook, a Kindle book, or you can, if you're an Audible person, you want to like these audio books, you can buy an Audible version of my book and listen to me read it to you for 8 hours. It took me 8 hours to read my own book out loud. But
I love that you did that. I'm just about to do that with my book, and I'm thinking, 8 hours. I'm not sure. I talk a lot, but 8 hours, we'll have to wait and see. But Dave, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Well, it has been a real pleasure for me too. This has been long in the making, but I think it was worth it. It really was.
I do too. Thank you again so much. And until the next show, everyone, live now, love now, relaunch now. And I look forward to seeing you back here again next week. Take care. You've just heard another episode of the Relaunch podcast. If something shared in this episode resonated with you, please head over to iTunes right now and leave us a 5-star review. And share this episode with others to inspire them to take the small steps that lead to a life full of purpose and possibility. And remember, you can have immediate access to the show notes and any giveaways at therelaunchco.com/podcast. Until next week, now is your time to relaunch your transition into a transformation.